majority of the work that we do. We feel that this is one of the best ways to learn about the causal impact of different types of solicitation campaigns. And Reagan is also part of our group as a faculty, and one of her interests has been social media and how to use social media to improve the effectiveness of campaigns. So maybe she can say something about it. And then we can discuss kind of more specifically what types of projects we thought would be interesting to do here.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. My name is Reagan Petrie. I've been working with SPI probably since its inception. I'm a faculty member at George Mason University in Virginia. And the kind of work that we've been doing with the support of SPI is to look at social media and fundraising, specifically peer-to-peer solicitation. So we have a large project that we've done with an online giving community where we looked at incentivizing donors to ask friends to give and looking at ways in which you can do this via social media, via Facebook, and varying the way that you ask, the amount of the way that you incentivize people, and have found that people are least likely to ask a friend in front of their friends. We need to find social pressure, but it's extremely effective in terms of generating new donations. We've also worked with a smaller organization called Friendly Give, which facilitates small donations via Twitter, and the idea is to make giving very social. And we've worked with them to try to understand a little bit of costs to donate as well, sort of nuisance costs to actually set up an account and make donations. So we're ongoing work with them as well. Those are kind of some projects that we've done with social media, but very interested in working with more people on these ideas as well.
So to preface the call, I think one of the kind of concerns that some of the organizations have were questions about what would be the time commitment that would be involved in participating in a research project. And often what we do is first discuss with the groups that are interested what type of bandwidth they have or what kinds of programs they are planning to launch for Giving Tuesday prior to going ahead. Indeed, some of the types of suggestions we might have could be very simple. So one of the things that we can try to understand what types of information may encourage donors to give with in the emails that you send out to your current donors, examining the messaging that you have. Some of the more complex types of things we might think about is offering additional kinds of social media badges or types of ways that people can engage to some of the donors and try to understand the effect of those types of things. And the reason we think that running this as an experiment is so important is because then the following year you can really see which types of solicitation worked and which maybe didn't, and then you can launch the solicitation that you think is the best one on a larger scale. And so for now, we were brainstorming some possible, and then the other component of this for the research is the data. So it's very important to collect the data on the donors who give and match those up with which email they actually receive. So one thing we would then want to have is data on the giving behavior on Giving Tuesday and potentially sometime afterward. Because one thing that we kind of see is that on Giving Tuesday, people tend to adjust their giving for Giving Tuesday and may then not give as much during the December, for example, the rest of December. So we want to try to understand whether these kind of possibly more expensive approaches like engaging donors on Giving Tuesday is going to have positive overall effect, or maybe just a shifting of giving from later in December to Giving Tuesday. So one thing essentially we need is an ability to do some of these randomized approaches to the solicitations, and then the second one, we need to have the data on the giving so we can help to analyze it. And from our end, we would take this data and then provide an analysis and help you think through potential future solicitations and what we can learn. So we have kind of three possible ideas for interesting projects that we could engage in. So one of those was peer-to-peer solicitations. So essentially, one of the kind of concerns, it seems, from last year is that when we give only new donors a match, or when we give only current donors a match, how can we engage both current donors and new donors? So one idea we had is perhaps when we email the current donors, or when the current donors do contribute, we give them some kind of incentive to ask their friends to give. And this could be something quite simple like ask your friends to give, and then we'll give you a pen, or it could be ask your friends to give, and we'll recognize you on our Facebook page, or we'll recognize you if someone brought in another new donor, because the new donors are the ones that are matched at the full amount of their donation rather than just at the amount that's higher than their previous gift. So that's one, this peer-to-peer idea is one kind of thought that we had. Another thought that we had is that on Giving Tuesday, people are bombarded with quite a few requests, and so they may have a competition for their attention. And so if you have some current donors that you would like to engage, one thing we could potentially think about doing is trying to engage them with a pledge the day before Giving Tuesday and say, please pledge to give, and then the next day is when we actually charge you for the gift. So that would be one potential way to get the attention of people who the next day maybe will have a lot of other requests. And then throughout all this, we think that using social media is quite important, and Reagan has a lot of experience with engaging donors through social media. So in the way that we implement these tools, we want to make sure that there's a lot of engagement on Facebook and Twitter and so on with these donors, that they have the ability to post to their friends that they gave to the organization. So this is a very kind of broad summary of the types of projects we were thinking about as being potentially interesting. I know that many of you already have plans for Giving Tuesday, and that do include social media, I'm sure. So I know the best, the next step is for everyone to kind of share what they're planning to do, or whether some of these ideas seem interesting and something they could incorporate. It's kind of a really quick overview, but.
Hi, this is William. Oh.
Go ahead, William. Sorry.
I think I was just responding to the question only. Did you ask for us to just share what we were planning?
Share what you're planning and think about whether what I just kind of discussed makes sense.
Well, this is our first Giving Tuesday, so this is our first entry, and in fact, so we've been doing quite a bit of research. All three of the things that you mentioned are sort of part of our plans, and I think one of the things we were hoping to engage were, we get a lot of local volunteers from colleges and high schools. We were hoping to involve them through, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, sorry. One of the things we were hoping to engage as part of this was sort of a team approach, try and engage some of our local high schools and colleges. So certainly the peer-to-peer with some sort of recognition, we'd already liked that idea. We haven't landed upon something. One of the concerns was, I hadn't really thought about the pledge the day before, but one of our concerns is a meltdown on Giving Tuesday in our system. So we were actually thinking of, rather than trust our own website, perhaps sign up to one of these peer-to-peer hosting websites, which might both be more attractive, but I think may provide us with greater security on the day. And social media, we are on Facebook and we do email. I'd say that we do quite a bit. We haven't really come up with our plan, but we were trying to provide some energy through that. And hopefully, if we can engage some of our younger constituents, from the high schools and colleges, they would be able to help us in that. So we have plans, but nothing's fully formed.
This is Audrey. I can jump in if you'd like. I agree with William that, the things you were talking about, Anya, we had hoped to incorporate in some form, although maybe we hadn't explicitly identified the peer-to-peer solicitation, which I think is a great idea and makes a lot of sense to me. For Giving Tuesday, this is our second year doing it, so we developed a little bit of a template last year, and we feel a little bit more confident this year, but also we have the challenge of getting past, the initial enthusiasm that we benefited from last year. So we rolled out our social media campaign in the beginning of October, and we're just continuing to push out content at least once a week and more frequently up until Giving Tuesday. We have Giving Tuesday on our website as well, and we have on our website page, we've developed a few calls to action. We're really trying to drive people to our social media, to Facebook and Twitter, and being very specific about asking them to share this year, because we found that, when people share things, it lets us reach new donors without having to pay to boost, which is really important. We're also asking people to become ambassadors, social media ambassadors, which I think could tie in very well to the peer-to-peer solicitation. We do have a pledge set up, and we are asking people to take the pledge as of now, and I would like to continue to really push that and encourage that this year with the hopes of identifying some concrete donors before Giving Tuesday and then reaching them out to them on the day of. To encourage them to give. Email is the other important component of our campaign. We'll be using Constant Contact as our email client to send out, probably throughout November, an introduction in October, and then several email solicitations in November, just to really remind people that Giving Tuesday is coming up and that they have this unique opportunity to make a match.
This is Terry. Do you want me to jump in, Clark? So, everything we've learned, this is our third Giving Tuesday at PAC Learning Center, and everything we've learned is that you can start a little early and run into a little fatigue that way, in that social media momentum seems to work better late in the game in this case. But I've heard that 90% of donors don't care about any donor recognition. But that being said, we would like to see Giving Tuesday more as a overall strategy of attracting younger donors in general. And so our tools include email. We use a Blackbaud system called Spark that's part of that package, and try to enlist some young mass influencers to be our ambassadors, but a little wary of asking people to who we ask to be ambassadors. That's a touchy subject, I would say, compared to actually making a donation. Thank you.
May I just interject and follow up on the comment that Terry just made? So I just wanted to ask her if he might elaborate a bit more on what he means about being careful who's chosen as an ambassador and that link with actual giving behavior.
Well, first of all, our database demographics tend to the, let's say, baby boomer side, and I just believe that asking someone to lend their reputation, their name, or their time is probably their most valuable resource, even more so than their capital.
Got it. I understand. Thanks.
Jacqueline, can you go next?
Sure, yeah. You know, I guess for Women Angels perspective, you know, our biggest concerns are, you know, I think one of the callers had actually addressed it. I don't know if it's a momentum thing, but it's certainly a fatigue thing. We want to make sure our timing is appropriate, so we don't run into that issue of, I don't know if it's saturation or if it's a little bit of desensitivity to the message, but that's one of our biggest concerns. And then I think our second biggest one this year is to really do a little bit more metrics and measurements than we have done in the past. We look at it as kind of three-pronged. We want to, you know, look at an email program that's obviously productive, as well as a social media program that's awesome in the same regard, and then consider any kind of direct mail. And then for us, if we do direct mail, who are we targeting? Is that our big corporate donors? Is it our mid-tier donors? That sort of thing. So those are our probably biggest areas of interest in terms of exploring. Thanks.
Anya or Reagan, do you want to have further question? Anya, I don't think you're coming through very clearly. Can you try again? You're coming in and out of the call.
Sorry, I'm having some problems with my computer. Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Yes, that's a little better, yeah.
So I was wondering if people could comment kind of what they've done thus far in terms of social media, how they're set up to allow donors to, for example, post on Facebook that they've donated, this kind of thing. Or whether most of it is just the organization themselves posting.
I could go first. We've nothing in the sense, we haven't done, this is William from our place, we haven't done anything where we're directly using social media like Facebook as an active donation. We simply use it to alert people to the opportunities and the stuff that we're doing, but we haven't connected it yet to an active donation platform.
This is Audrey. We haven't done anything specifically like that either, Anya, like that specific example you gave. We would like to incorporate a platform this year that lets people donate through Twitter and Facebook. So that, I think, would be definitely a vehicle to let us immediately recognize the people who, you know, hashtag donate with the amount they want to give to us. That's something that I'm hoping will make the social media part of the campaign a little bit more participatory.
So I'm wondering now if we had talked a bit about randomly assigning some of the potential donors to get one type of solicitation or one type of opportunity to give through Facebook, and others to do something different. So I'm wondering if that's something that your groups would feel comfortable with doing, and also what is the size of your current donor pool that you'll be reaching out to for Giving Tuesday as well? Because I think if it's only 50 to 100 donors, then it might be samples quite small. If it's several hundred thousand, tens of thousands, then I think there's a lot more that can be done with different types of different types.
Oh, well, I can go first again. I'd say our donor listing is probably around the 500 to 600, and so again, I don't know if that's a big enough sample. I'd have to think more about just understanding it, but we would certainly be open to using Facebook in that way.
This is Audrey. In terms of the size of our database and the people that we're reaching, it's a little different than, the actual number of donors to the organization. But in terms of our direct mail, we'll probably mail to around 2,000 people this holiday season. And then in terms of email, it's more in the range of 5,000 contacts, but the number of people who actually open the emails is much smaller. So I'm not sure if that would be figured into your campaign. And then in terms of the actual number of donors that we had on Giving Tuesday last year, it was in the range of 100. So, you know, a bigger reach, but in terms of the people who are taking action, you know, it's a smaller group.
Yeah, this is Terry from PACT, and our email reach is about 1,000, and that's about maybe 60 or 65% of our total database. The number of Giving Tuesday donations last year online was in the 150 area for us. And I'll add that I'm really struggling to hear Anya or to stay connected on this. I don't know if it's my computer or
No,
what the problem is.
it's me as well. I'm having a difficult time hearing. This is Jacqueline. Thanks. Folks, do you want me to share a little bit about Immerman Angels and our reach? Okay. So yeah. I know some of the data that people have already expressed, but not everything. Our email, our full email list is about 33,000, of which are donors. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that information up. However, last year I think we raised approximately $15,000 on Giving Tuesday. We'll raise annually about 1.6 million over all of our efforts and events for this last year, so that gives you an idea of how much we feel is left out there. Additionally, I forgot what I was going to say. That happens. But yeah, so our list is about 32,000. We raised about 15 grand last year for Giving Tuesday, and our total, functioning raising of all of our events is about 1.6 million.
Anya, I don't think we can hear you. I don't know if you can.
How about, can you hear me now?
There we go. That's better, yes.
Okay, good. I switched to my phone. I think it's going to work better. Well, it sounds like a lot of you have somewhat similar questions, one of them being how to use social media to engage younger donors, which is, I think, aligned well with our interests at the Science of Philanthropy Initiative. And collectively, there are quite a large number of potential donors that we can reach through email campaigns. So that's a great start. I'm not sure what would be the best for all of you, and potentially we could send, after this call over email, kind of some more concrete ideas for how to engage these young donors through different email campaigns. And I was really interested that Audrey is going to be working on a platform to donate through Facebook, since that could also be something of interest for the rest of the group if we were able to coordinate that.
Sure. It's called Good World. And I think you could probably just Google it for anyone else who's interested. I can't even remember how I initially came across them. But it's GODWORLD, and they let people, it's a platform that lets people simply put a hashtag, write donate, and then write a $, the amount they want to donate on Twitter or Facebook, and it gives it's a vehicle to let people do that. They do have to sign up and make an account through Good World, so it would direct people away from whatever other donation platform you're using. But in terms, I can't remember who said it, but I think that actually might help in terms of steering away from a meltdown of the system, which we actually experienced last year. So it's new for us this year. I can't say how exactly it's going to work since it's new, but we're excited to try it.
Could you repeat the system? Was it Goodworld?
Yes, that's right.
It's goodworld.me is the website. This is Jacqueline. Just to add, again, Jacqueline here from the Immerman Angels, we'd also be interested, we're also kind of looking at like what has been done in the past for text to reach our younger demographic, as we're talking about how text is being utilized for donations, similar to what the Red Cross does in times of need, to see if there was a way for us to, jump on that super highway. Thanks.
Hi, this is Reagan. Just wanted to make a few comments. So the Good World, I just opened up the webpage, looks a lot like this other organization that we've done some work with, which is called TinyGive. And you can make donations via Twitter. In all cases, you have to set up an account. And so far, the research that we've done sort of suggests that just that additional barrier can be really difficult for people because it's one more account that they have to set up and give their credit card to. So maybe it will be, maybe people are going to be willing to do that kind of thing on Giving Tuesday, and it'll be actually perhaps very interesting to see how that works. But our experience has been that that's just one more nuisance cost, and people tend to not do that. The text thing could potentially be more fruitful, just in the sense that if it's through your phone, you don't have to set up one more account because it's through your phone bill, I guess. That's how it would work. And if that's the case, my guess is that would be a more successful vehicle for people to send in donations than having to go and set up an account and that kind of thing. So just might be something to kind of keep in mind. I'm not familiar with how the text donations might work, and if that might be more complex to set up than setting up something via Good World or via TinyGive.
Yeah, that was a good point. This is Jacqueline. Very good point about that. Any kind of barrier is an interesting thing because it usually results in a low turnout or a low conversion rate. What was the company that you mentioned that was a competitor or an alternative to Good World? I didn't catch that.
It's called TinyGive, TinyGive.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I suspect it works in a similar format to Good World, or at least the way their setup is there are organizations that register on TinyGive, and once you've registered there and then the donor has registered, you can easily tweet things, like you say, hey, hashtag, hey, hashtag Interim Angels, here's $5, hey, at Interim Angels, here's $5, hashtag TinyGive.
Right,
and,
gotcha, yeah.
And then the donation is made if you already have an account, and then it's also tweeted. And so the whole premise of it, and I suspect Good World is the same idea, is that you make donations social, right? So
right.
you can put things up on Twitter and show that you've made a donation. You can retweet it, and it just makes the whole conversation very different than this. And I'm going to say a black box, but that's not quite the right word. But when you're making a donation directly to the organization, there's not that socialness that kind of goes along with it. So some of the things that Anya and I were talking about were this idea that it might be important or it could be useful, I don't know, if people have an ability to be able to make that more social. It may be attractive to some individuals. It may not be attractive to some individuals. Some individuals may want to be private about it. But, right? Yeah. But there may be some individuals, if you can give them that mechanism to be able to say, hey, I gave to this great place, join me in donating too. So, again, not everyone, and I believe it was Terry who mentioned this, that not everyone may want to be recognized, but some people do. And some people like being able to do these things. And our research sort of suggests that having that ability to do that, people do it. Not everyone does it, but people do it, and people seem to respond to it. So maybe having that as a component could be useful, and Anya and I will need to put our heads together a little bit to sort of think about what those things might be, but that could potentially be something that could be interesting, especially, I think, for younger people who engage in social media and Twitter, and certainly Twitter probably to a larger extent than, so I may be misstating things about demographics, but certainly it's the case more people engage on Facebook than they engage on Twitter. But it could be that the demographics on Twitter are younger than the demographics on Facebook. But that's a speculation. I don't know if that's true or not.
I think it is. But I agree. I think the social, the selfie society that would be the younger demographic typically is more would be more they would find that more appealing. But that's an interesting point. Thanks for sharing that, Audrey.
Or that was Reagan, actually. I believe.
Oh, thanks.
But this is Audrey, and I really appreciated the insights that we just got, and also just wanted to say that I think the texting idea is very interesting as well. If we are able to find some platform to use for that, I think we'd definitely be interested in finding out more about that.
So this is Anya. It sounds like one possibility is if Reagan and I think about this more, and if we can find a platform for social media engagement that would work for the group, then coordinate to test the effectiveness of that type of program and the different kinds of ways that one could engage donors to encourage other donors to give through these social media, through posting on Twitter that they gave or posting on Facebook that they gave. Is that kind of an accurate thought, that if people had, if we all coordinated to have access to a similar platform, we could do something like that across all of the groups?
Jacqueline here. Indeed, yes.
This is Audrey, yes.
William.
Great. And one other kind of idea we had previously was also around peer-to-peer solicitation, is whether any of you were also going to pair any of these solicitations with donor gifts. So, for instance, often you ask people to give and then you send a pen or something in return for a certain amount of donation. When you're thinking of potential incentives that you receive if you can encourage a friend to give. So I'm wondering if anyone had thought about that or was planning to use any kinds of incentives as part of your campaigns. This is different from the social media idea, but it just gives us a better sense of what you're planning.
I could jump in again. We are thinking about it, but our initial thought is that our more mature donor isn't really going to be too interested in anything. But if we're trying to mobilize our younger supporters to make it exciting, then they would be interested or it'd catch their attention. We just haven't quite landed on something. I don't think a pen would work.
No, I don't think so either.
I think a T-shirt might work has come up, but of course T-shirt's a bit more expensive than a pen. But something along those lines to sort of just try and catch their attention. And who doesn't like a T-shirt? But we're still thinking about it. But it would really be a focus on our younger supporters.
This is Audrey. So we actually incorporated a rather larger incentive program last year, gave out gifts to 30 people, sort of depending on when they donated and how much they gave. We found it not super useful. I think that just in terms of, what we decided to give and the logistics of getting it to people, especially for our larger donors, I don't think it was a big motivator for them. But that being said, we have decided to do something again this year for the first people who donate, just because we think that's, a good way to get things rolling in the morning, get people interested. We were talking about something like a mug or, something just easy and it will be something for people to take home and feel good about.
This is Terry from PACT, and we were thinking about offering World Series tickets to our Giving Tuesday donors. I at first blushed the idea of asking something else of our donors. I'm along with William that it would definitely be directed towards the younger crowd. But I'm always, we have a smaller base, and we're always concerned about saturation or donor fatigue or whatever you want to call it, and asking more of certain people, whether that's influencing their peers or giving money or, every request is an interruption of some sort, and, we're wary of that. Sorry to be a wet blanket here.
I don't think that's a wet blanket. I think everybody considers that as they're pitching to their database of donors. So.
Okay, so I think the next steps may be for Reagan and I to talk again, and then over email provide some suggestions of things that we might proceed with, and then we can kind of get responses from you all that way. Reagan, do you have any other questions for everyone?
No, this has been really useful. It's been very nice to hear what everyone is working on and what they're thinking about. That sort of helps a lot in thinking about what might be kind of next steps for Anya and I. And I agree with Anya. I think the next step is probably for us to think a little more and offer some concrete suggestions to you all and see if they might be useful for you all. And you can give us some feedback and we can kind of go from there, I think.
This is Clark. Can I jump in just for a second? Does Audrey, William, Terry, or Jacqueline have any questions of Anya and Reagan at this point?
I do. This is Terry, and so I'm interested in the timing of this project as well as the time commitment required to participate in this project. Thank you.
Sure. So regarding the time commitment, one of the key things that everyone should be willing to do is be able to provide the data on the giving behavior for Giving Tuesday as well as for a month or so afterwards so that we can do the analysis of the effect of the program. The other part of the time commitment would involve actually setting up the project in terms of how to do the solicitations in a way that everybody can coordinate and have a kind of an overarching research agenda. That part, I think, will kind of depend on what platform we use and how quickly that can be set up. But I think that shouldn't be too much of a time commitment if it's already going to fall into if it's already going to fall into the planned solicitations for Giving Tuesday. So it seems like many of you are already planning to do email and social media engagement, and this would just be altering that in a way that allows us to learn something about the different motivations for giving and how to encourage greater giving. Regarding timeline, I think we are getting close to Giving Tuesday, so my hope is that Reagan and I can send an email out in the next few days and get some responses from all of you in terms of your continued interest in some of the more specific ideas that we'll send around.
And Anya, are you envisioning that we would consider this as one single research project with potentially the four organizations that are on the call now and one other that has indicated interest, or would there be potentially individual projects by organization?
I think because the organizations, for the most part, are quite small and some are new to some of this, that doing a project that's joint across the groups would be ideal. And it sounds like many of the programs are even quite similar in their scope. That doesn't mean that every person's solicitation will look the same. It just means that the types of tools we might test for social media engagement would be the same.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I have one. Go ahead.
This is Audrey. Just a quick, follow-up question to what we were talking about. I think it would be great, Anya, if you're able to, send that email with some more specific ideas of tools and what the campaign might look like. I would also definitely be interested to know what data you're specifically looking for on the donors, if you're able to give some more, just in terms of what kind of data you're looking for, because, it could be extremely easy or it might take a little bit more digging in the database to figure that out. So that's just something I'd be interested in knowing.
Sure. So ideally, we would have de-identified data, so we don't want to have the names or the addresses or any kind of personally identifiable information on people unless it's somehow easier for you to provide it that way. We do want to know which since we're thinking about giving some donors one solicitation and some other donors a different one, we'd want to know which of these each donor received, and then look at what their giving was for Giving Tuesday, and then what their giving was subsequently for the next month. And it'd be great to also know something about their prior year giving. I think some of this you already are going to be providing to Clark for the match, because you'll need to share how much more they gave relative to the rest of the year. So that part of it I think you're already providing. So the only extra part is really the making sure that we know which donor received which email, and we know what the donor then proceeded to do in December.
Sure, that's a big help. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, did you have another one?
I did. I just was, to what extent does this require, again, reaching out to donors for some of this data, or is this all coming out of our database?
This should all just be coming out of your database. We're not asking for any kind of demographic information or any kind of surveys or any of that. It's just the giving behavior of your donors.
Okay, thank you.
Your organization only. Mm-hmm.
I misunderstood that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any final questions?
And I'll summarize this data point in the email as well. I think that'll help.
Okay, great. Well, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour, and so we're to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you all very much for participating in the call. I think there is some really good potential for some research here that can be helpful not only to your organizations, but really, more broadly. And that's a very strong interest of the foundation as well. So I want to particularly thank you in advance for your efforts as we move into this project. Sounds like the next step is that Anya and Reagan will be sending out via email some more information about possible next steps, either a kind of an outline of a research design or maybe a suggestion as to some next meetings and calls to take place. So we'll look forward to that. Additionally, this call is being recorded, so we do have one other organization that wanted to join, and so I'll work with them and hopefully give them an opportunity to view this call so that they can get up to speed. And then, Anya, I'll connect them back to you. All right?
That sounds great.
Okay. Any final items from anyone?
Not here. Thank you for arranging this.
Okay, great. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.